Now, and welcome to our Mothers Out Front Massachusetts Climate Action Call. My name is Diane Sokol. I'm a member of the Brookline chapter and also work with a statewide campaign team. For those of you who are not familiar with a Mothers Out Front Climate Action Calls, in the next 45 minutes, you will learn about a specific climate issue and we will take focused action together. Today, our statewide legislative team and campaign team will be providing an update on the status of the energy bills in the State House. The Senate bill and the House bill will soon go to a conference committee to be reconciled. We will learn how we may be able to influence the negotiations in this conference committee to ensure the passage of a strong energy bill for this legislative session. So here's a quick preview of the agenda for the call. After a brief overview of today's topic, we'll break into small groups just for a few minutes to discuss how to grow our reach to all legislators. We will then hear the background information about the Senate and House energy bills and move on to our action. We've set aside about 15 minutes of this call to take action together, and at the end, we'll come back together for a few important announcements and next steps, and we will end this meeting promptly at 12:45. Before we get going, I'll just quickly go over the Zoom norms for the meeting. If you can rename yourself in Zoom to include your name, your city and town, and if you like, the organization you're with. Be sure to mute yourself when we are together in this main room. Use the chat to share comments or questions during the call. Closed captioning is available. You should be able to access that tool on the bottom of the screen. And finally, we are recording this climate action call. So if you do not want to be seen in the recording, you can use your Zoom controls to turn off your video. At the State House, the Senate recently passed their version of the energy bill. It took a broader view of energy legislation than the House did in their bill, which focused very narrowly on energy affordability. To quote from the Senate press release, their bill projects to deliver billions in savings to ratepayers across the Commonwealth while keeping Massachusetts on track to meet its climate goals. So our message to the conference committee is that affordability and climate goals can be achieved together. For today's action, we will contact our legislators to let them know we're expecting their continued support, and we'll also reach out through our networks across the Commonwealth to influence legislators who might not hear from constituents about climate issues. Before we dive into the details of the Senate and House energy bills, we'll break into discussion groups. Our next speaker will introduce the topic. Marjorie Davies is a co-coordinator of the Clean Affordable Heat Now campaign and a member of the Cambridge chapter.
Mothers Out Front and other grassroots climate organizations are able to reach some legislators easily based on years of relationship building through our chapters and nodes. Many of these legislators are our strongest advocates in the State House and need our support to keep pushing for a clean energy future for our families. But there are parts of the state that don't seem to have a strong base of climate activists educating and speaking with their legislators. How do we reach these legislators? A good first step is often to connect to someone one of our members knows and is willing to speak to. So one focus for today is to think of ourselves as a hub with spokes out to many people, near and far. Later, we're going to ask you to think of contacting one of those people and see if they might be a part of your wheel of activism. They don't have to join Mothers Out Front to take action. You can be the hub for their actions. But first, you have to be ready to talk about climate with them. Here is a breakdown of Massachusetts towns by how their votes went in the 2024 presidential election, an approximation of state legislator leanings as well. The pink and red regions voted Republican. The light blue and light pink were mixed, and dark blue was solidly liberal. Combining this information with where Mothers Out Front has relatively fewer members, we think it would be particularly useful to contact people who live in southeastern Massachusetts and the South Shore, Cape Cod and the Islands, the North Shore, Merrimack Valley communities, central Massachusetts, and communities to the west of Springfield. Have you had an experience when you took a risk, stepped out of your comfort zone, and brought up climate or another topic that you hadn't discussed before with a person in your orbit? I once invited a longtime friend to meet a candidate for election whom I didn't know if he was supporting. After he met the candidate, he had plenty of questions about their positions. I wasn't sure the candidate had gained his support. To my surprise, a couple of months later, I heard my friend say several things that made it clear that he was not only supporting the candidate, but was even willing to help with the campaign. This made it clear to me that I shouldn't be so shy about asking. In your breakout rooms, encourage each other with ideas for where and how to reach out to involve another person with whom you haven't broached the topic of taking climate action themselves. When have you asked someone to support a position or action that you weren't sure they would agree with? Deb, can you put this question in the chat? And some guidelines for the chat rooms are the breakout rooms. Make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak. When you see the 15-second countdown, use that time to wrap up your conversations, and then you will automatically rejoin the main room. So off to the breakout rooms. Great. I hope you had some great discussions and are inspired to help to spread the climate movement's reach. We need the Where Are We Now slide. Great.
Sorry.
So let's start with where we are in this 25-26 legislative session. In January 25, the legislature convened, and within weeks, thousands of bills were filed, including a good number of bills related to climate change. Governor Healy submitted her own bill in spring 25 with a focus on energy affordability. Hearings on bills were held. Then, in November 25, with very little forewarning, Representative Mark Cusack, House co-chair of the Joint Committee on Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energy, TUE, released a House energy bill. Well, I think it's safe to say that this triggered an avalanche of coordinated protests from climate advocates, including many of you, as well as from some legislators, over both the content of the bill and the process. The House Ways and Means Committee then submitted a substantially revised version, which was passed in late February 26. Then it was Senate's turn. After several months, and apparently after a great deal of discussion and deliberations, Senator Michael Barrett, Senate co-chair of TUE, drafted the Senate Energy Bill, which was passed by the Senate with a few amendments on July 1st. The next step will be a conference committee composed of 3 senators and 3 representatives. The conference committee will attempt to combine the House and Senate energy bills into one comprehensive energy bill. So, how do all of you fit into this process, given the stage that we have reached? In a nutshell, we are asking you to again contact your senators and representatives. We'll be asking our senators and representatives to speak to the Joint Conference Committee because they have the power to move forward the kind of legislation we want. The committee members are selected by the leadership, 3 from each chamber. Their task is to negotiate a single bill out of 2 very large, complex bills that differ on many issues. We'll know who is on the committee in the next 2 weeks. Now, some of you may ask, aren't our legislators tired of hearing from me? Answer, no. First, I have personally been told many, many times by my legislators, both House and Senate, that they really appreciate hearing from me and the fact that I am bringing issues to their attention. Remember those thousands of bills filed at the beginning of the legislative session? It is such a huge pile that no legislator, even with the help of their staff, can manage to absorb and keep track of everything. So they depend on us to provide them with information, resources, and arguments to be made. Second, guess what? Legislators can count. They keep track of how many phone calls, emails, letters, and in-person visits they receive on particular topics. Quantity matters. Third, legislators particularly like to hear from constituents. So you should always make it clear to your legislators that you are a constituent. And finally, legislators notice when they are hearing from someone new who hasn't contacted them about a particular issue before. So getting others to join you matters. Mothers Out Front legislative priorities are a centerpiece of our Clean, Affordable Heat Now campaign. We're asking our legislators to advocate on our behalf to the conference committee to include these priorities in their final energy bill. Our legislators are working in a time of high energy costs for consumers and feel the pressure to give some relief immediately. But as advocates for climate policy, we believe that most residents want relief in the future too. That's why we support energy efficiency and limiting ratepayer-funded expansion of the gas system. Now, Andrew Rose of Amherst, coordinator of our state legislation and regulation team, will review how our priorities feature in the House bill and the Senate bill.
Thank you, Marjorie. All right, so we'll start with Mass Save. Mass Save lowers energy costs for everyone, even people who don't use it. The House bill cuts $1 billion of Mass Save funding from next year's budget. We strongly oppose those cuts to Mass Save. It's a successful program which returns over $3 in savings for every dollar spent, and it's made Massachusetts a national leader in energy efficiency. And since 2025, the Mass Save program has focused successfully on meeting the needs of low and moderate income families and renters. Cutting the program now would hurt them the most. The Senate bill preserves the funding for next year. We support that and some of the reforms to Mass Save in their bill. We support removing the gas companies as one of the utilities that administers the program, as well as redefining the focus of Mass Save as building decarbonization. However, the Senate bill does include some provisions we oppose, including a ceiling on funding in the future. And both the House and Senate bills include a new requirement that moderate income households in the Senate bill and low and moderate income households have to prove their eligibility for Mass Save discounts. And we oppose that because it creates an additional barrier to accessing benefits. To meet the state's climate goals, we need legislation that supports electrifying whole neighborhoods with investments in energy efficiency and clean energy. Right now, we depend on house-by-house changes initiated by individual homeowners. We need neighborhood-by-neighborhood solutions for a more cost-effective and equitable transition. And municipalities need the tools to promote electrification as an alternative to fossil fuel dependence. So we support the provisions in the Senate bill requiring the electric companies to plan for decarbonization. We also support the provisions that remove the cap on municipal solar and empower municipalities to create thermal networks and microgrids. The House bill left the costly Gas System Enhancement Program, GSEP, unchanged. The Senate bill ends GSEP by 2030. This would be a major win. It means that gas companies would stop charging ratepayers for the cost of upgrading an obsolete gas system. The Senate bill also prioritizes repairs of pipes, which can be done at a fraction of the cost of replacement. It puts the power of law behind the Department of Public Utilities mandate requiring the gas companies to find non-pipeline alternatives to replacing pipes, something they've refused to do. The House and the Senate bills both allow gas companies to sell other types of thermal energy, like networked geothermal or air source heat pumps. But the Senate bill goes farther to allow companies to end gas service if they provide an alternative. This is the clearest, strongest language yet to change from the obligation to serve gas to an obligation to serve thermal energy, which can be clean. I do want to point out that neither bill included stopping permitting of new or expanded gas pipelines like the proposed pipeline in Springfield, and they did not include joint gas and electric utility planning, which we think is necessary for this transition. So now we're going to dive into a particular issue that came up, very unusual, on the floor of any chamber, either chamber. Debate rarely actually happens in the open. And this happened over a particular amendment that we supported. And votes are usually along party lines based on leadership's guidance, and that was also unusual in this case. It was a split vote. So this was Amendment 77, one that we asked our senators to support, and it would have saved $160 million a year that ratepayers currently pay to subsidize new connections to the gas system through the line extension allowances, known as LEA. It was opposed by real estate developers who argued that housing development would be hurt. Some of our senators, who we consider climate advocates, voted against this amendment, and it failed 19-20. If your senator voted for Amendment 77, please thank them when you write your email to them. If they voted against it, please express your disappointment and educate them that building all electric is now cheaper than building with gas. Cities and towns that have adopted all electric new construction have seen no fall off in housing starts. The list of how senators voted and suggested language for what to say is in the action toolkit. Now I'll describe the specific action that we'll be taking today. So in a minute, Deb, if you could wait, Deb will put the link for the action toolkit in the chat. And after I go over the instructions, click on that link. So first, in the toolkit, you'll find a link to search for the name and email of your state legislators. You'll send each of them an email based on the sample we have in the toolkit. You will be using your own email account to send the message. Please customize the sample, especially the subject line. And we ask you to BCC us so that we can track which legislators we reached. For the second action, we hope you'll start an email to a friend or family member. We always encourage you to forward our follow-up email from these calls to your friends and colleagues. This time, we're hoping you'll really give this some thought. We have a special version of the toolkit for you to send to a new potential advocate so we can get this message sent to all legislators. Who do you know who might take action, but you've never broached the topic? Could you ask for their agreement that you can forward action alerts to them? Would they be willing to be a conduit to their legislator who might not have many constituents who contact them about climate issues? Would they let you support them if this feels daunting? Maybe you'll call this person first, or maybe you'll decide to contact someone else once you think about it. But we hope you'll at least start. This is how we'll grow the climate movement, one relationship at a time, as it's always been for our organizing in Mothers Out Front. You don't have to BCC us on this. We know these communications will be personal, but please send us an email with your intention to contact someone, maybe what town they live in. And if you can look up their legislators, we could send you information about how they could approach them based on that legislator's interests. So now, Deb, please put the link in the chat, and Diane's going to go over a few details before we begin the action.
Great. Thank you, Marjorie and Deb and Andra. Deb's going to go drop that toolkit link one more time into the chat. Just click on it and it will automatically open up the toolkit. We're all going to be quiet for the next few minutes so we can take these actions together. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. If you're really struggling with the tech, don't worry, you'll get the instructions by email later today. But if possible, get them done or at least started right now, and we'll see you back around 12:40. Pause for now. We're at the end of our time and you can always finish up later if you weren't able to complete the actions right now. Your emails to our legislators will keep them thinking about our priorities as the final bill takes shape. And your efforts to motivate someone new to take climate action will make a big difference collectively. It's going to take a lot of people to tip the scales in favor of real climate solutions. But when we gather together and join forces with our allies in the climate movement, we can be a real force for change. In the next day or so, you will receive a follow-up email. It will have the links to the toolkit that we shared today, a PDF of these slides, and also a link to a recording of this call. Again, please consider forwarding that email to friends and colleagues across the Commonwealth and grow the network by one or maybe one more person willing to speak up and for a just and swift transition to a clean energy future. Mothers Out Front holds a welcome call every month. The next one is actually a month away, Friday, August 14th at noon. If you're new to Mothers Out Front, we hope you will join us. Maybe you've asked yourself, what more could I be doing to stop climate change? If so, this is the right event for you. In this 45-minute Zoom call, we will work to help you identify the U-shaped hole in this movement. We want to help you find ways to use your unique talents, skills, and experiences to build a stronger, more effective, and more inclusive movement for change. So join us and bring a friend. Deb will put that in the link, that link in the chat. And finally, we want this climate action call to be on your calendar every month. We're taking off the month of August, but you can still continue today's actions and reach out to your networks across the Commonwealth. Our next climate action call will be on Tuesday, September 1st at noon. Register now and add it to your calendar. You'll receive the Zoom link and then a reminder email on the day. But Tuesday, September 1st is also election day for primary races in Massachusetts. There are primary elections for our U.S. Senator and representatives in Washington, D.C. There are mass state offices, including governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. Our state senators and representatives, those are the legislators you are writing to today, along with other races, including county district attorneys. You can get all the details about the dates to register, request a mail-in ballot at your local city or town clerk office. And Deb will also add the link to the official Mass Government website from the Secretary of the Commonwealth. And remember that voting is an important part of taking climate action. And so many thanks to all of you for joining to take action together today. Special thanks to our speakers and to our tech support team working behind the Zoom screen. So do watch your email for that follow-up info to share with others to spread our action. Have a great month of August, and we hope to see you again in September, Tuesday, September 1st at noon. Thank you.
Thank you.